To help us understand the legal dimensions of this controversy, we're joined by Olatunde Damola, legal practitioner. Good morning to you, Mr. Tunde. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Good morning, sir. It's my pleasure to be here on the studio this morning.
All right. Let's start like this. When a politician, or if a politician makes a statement, which can be interpreted as encouraging, inciting members of his own party to attack or kill or met violence on members of another political party, what exactly would the police need to establish before that statement can amount to incitement or a criminal offense?
Okay, thank you. Well, when a politician makes a statement that is inciting members of his party to carry out acts of violence on the opposing party, I believe that the mere mention of that statement or the mere making of the statement is sufficient for the police to carry out investigation and apprehend the said politician. And as a matter of fact, it has become a subject of huge displeasure for most persons to see that the said politician in person has not been charged to court yet. Because if that statement, were made by an ordinary citizen, by now we would have had them charged to court, taken behind bars and all. Even the statement that Mr. Shure often made are not something in this line, and then we see what happens. So I believe the police have everything sufficient for them to investigate once the statement is made. They do not have to wait for the statement itself to be executed or for probably the actions, commanded to be carried out before they can conduct their investigation into the said statement. And for Senator Father Osun State, I feel like there's no more investigation. The video is everywhere. And as a matter of fact, in the video, he mentioned that anyone who was to put it on social media, to put it on social media. And that, as a matter of fact, create, a national scale of endangerment, because it is not just those persons who are within the crowd that have been addressed now. That spreads to anybody who is within relation who can see the video or who is able to watch the video to execute the instruction that has been issued. So I would say the police have everything they need to carry out the investigation. And from what we heard, I think it was invited to the headquarters probably yesterday or 2 days ago. So we are still waiting to see what the police will do. But I believe there are sufficient people that are ability to be investigated.
All right. I've also been informed by our technical team that you may have to adjust the position of your device a little bit, or perhaps project a little bit more so we can hear you properly. Now, for some of the issues that you just raised, particularly on the denial, because he has denied that he actually called for accord members to be killed. You're a lawyer. Does that denial significantly change what has happened legally? Or would investigators still have to examine the full video, the context in which the statement was made and who it was addressed to, and how it could reasonably have been misunderstood or understood? I mean, can you walk us through it? Imagine for a moment that you were representing Mr. Fadahunsi in the court of law and he's come up with these explanation as to what he meant by the statements he put out there. Does it hold water?
Well, before I decide to answer from the legal standpoint, I hope I'm clear now.
Yes.
Before I answer from the legal standpoint, I think I will first come from the point of view of a reasonable man. From the point of view of a reasonable man, does Senator Father see the explanation good water? The answer is no, because the context in which he made the statement was actually very clear and very direct. And he actually communicated in the language that those persons could understand. He communicated in Yoruba for them to understand. And he told them expressly to hear. Now, yeah, when he was interviewed, it is common to our politicians to point and deny. He was trying to say, oh, okay, he was trying to say that he was only asking the people in the crowd to not listen to Accord, to vote out Accord, to kill Accord with vote. If he had intended that to be the statement, then I believe it should have been expressed enough. for a statement that could lead to violence, that could lead to inciting consequences, it is not a genuine excuse for you to say you made the statement generally without addressing the context there, and then you now want to clarify the context, behind the scenes. It is actually very, very wrong. So for me, legally, I do not believe that the clarification in the document holds any water. The statement is express. The statement is clear, and he made it. I believe he understands the context in which he was making it. Because why would he have mentioned that if anyone wants to place it on social media, they can place it on social media? That comes from a place of audacity, knowing that what he's about to say or what he was saying was true, but he does not care about the consequence, or he believes there will be no consequence in what he has said. And so far, I still believe that he's been proven right because there are no consequences. He has come to the social media trying to turn things around, trying to change the narrative. But legally, I do not believe that would water. And even if that would water, I believe it will be answering that in court, not even on a TV program. I believe by now it will be in court defending himself and explaining the context in court. Even though I believe it is not going to hold water because it was clear, it was expressly clear. Anybody who is within that particular garden at that point in time would reasonably take the instruction as a form of authorizing them to go on a rampage to retaliate. Because based on certain discussions I had with some persons who are members of that party, some of them were saying it because they had been some violence on their members and all of that. But that is actually authorizing them to go on, to carry out a rampage to kill. So it is not excusable for him to now mention or try to now describe the context. And as a matter of fact, if the court is going to consider Senator's father on Sisley, I believe the court will also consider the meaning of that word from that of a reasonable man, and not from what Senator Father on C considers to be his own context in that matter. So from my own end, I believe that there is already a clear legal ability. There is no need for him to start explaining. And even if he wants to explain, he can get a lawyer and go and explain it. But I don't think any. Well, I will not take it past. I will not take it past anyone because he's entitled to the legal practitioner of his choice. But I think it will be laughable for a legal practitioner to even place that forward and say, oh, that was not what he meant when he didn't say that. For something that could actually create a good ground. And this is not the first time it is happening. I believe that aside from being a legal practitioner or from considering the angles of law, you also need to consider the angles of this. This is not the first time that we'll be having politicians making inciting statements and then they'll come around and try to make Nigerians look like they did not know what we have heard. That is the height of that's why try to make you think like they don't know what they just said. I think in 2011, based on news report, I think Buhari also made similar statement in course of, I think ahead of the 2015 election or thereabout, where he mentioned that when people go to vote, they should monitor their vote, and if there's anyone trying to obstruct them, they should kill them. And he used this figurative expression saying, and maybe baboon bloodbath or something like that. And at the end of the day, when he was asked, he denied the whole thing. He said, "Oh, that was not what he meant. He meant the other thing." I found, I think it was 2011 election, yeah. And we found out that the aftermath of that statement led to the death of, I think, 10 coppers and lots of persons there. But he denied the whole thing, saying that was not the context. So I think we should not be given the excuse of people to make very dangerous statements in public and then go in private to say, "Oh, that was not the context." So I believe that Senator Father excuse does not hold waters in law. And even if he wants to give that excuse, please take him to court. Let him give that excuse to court.
Now we understand he's being questioned by the police, and so many people are wondering what should be the focus of that particular investigation or that interrogation by the police. Should the police simply determine whether a crime was committed, or should they be looking at the fact? Because, I mean, you made reference to a point where a statement like this was made and it incited some level of violence. So, should the police just be looking at the fact that a crime was committed here, or should they be looking at the fact that a statement was made which, had the potential of actually inciting violence or creating a genuine risk of violence, particularly in Osun State?
Okay, thank you. Firstly, I believe that the police should consider that statement poses a genuine risk to the society, especially in light of the political tensions that is present in Osun. Then also, I do not want to state factually, but I was privileged to come across the news article, being a report from Mr. Pelungola Jenjesi, a legal practitioner, and one of the spokesmen of the Accord Party, who mentioned that certain persons were killed in Malaysia yesterday who are members of the Accord Party. Although the police have come, they came out to debunk that and said, okay, it was done by maybe a court class or thereabout. But if it is found that indeed an Accord member was killed, in Malaysia, where that statement was made, then I believe it aggravates Senator Father and liability. And the police should also look into that and not try to cover up. So I believe that that statement should be investigated not just for, it should be investigated for both the potential to create violence and after violence. If the allegations in the media as appears to be on the death of an Accord member in Elisha is actually, and I believe this follows an existing principle of law because there's a case about many years ago, where a particular chief told members of the community to kill any foreigner that comes into the town based on retaliation. And when those persons went out and they carried out the act of violence, he was charged and found guilty of procuring those persons to commit the act of murder. So every direct consequence or every probable consequence or every reasonable consequence that occurs from that statement, I believe Senator Father has the ability to answer on those consequences. So I believe the police has sufficient grounds to investigate both on the possible implication of the statement as well as the actual implication of the statement if the news in the media are to be are to be
So,
true.
so what would be an acceptable consequence for Senator Fada because of what he has said? Now, the Amnesty International said they're going to use him as a scapegoat. This is their own words now, where they said many politicians have made statements like this. And in fact, on the grounds that advocacy of hatred is a crime under international law as well as Nigerian law. So, as far as consequences go, how do you foresee this ending for Senator Fadaunsi?
Well, I think in the midst of the whole political tension and based on historical precedent in Nigeria, I would say that I have little hopes of anything really happening to Senator Fadausi based on the fact that there have been previous instances that this has happened after the tension rises and then it trends in the media for a while. People tend to just get over it, or we find out that at the end of the day, the Nigerian police force ignores that, or something else comes on board and takes the national attention away from it. But if it were to be based on my desires as a legal practitioner and a citizen of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, I believe that one possible outcome I would wish for Senator Adams is for him to be tried. For his conviction, I would not say, but I wish that at least for the barest minimum, he ought to be charged with fraud, he ought to be tried, and he ought to be allowed to answer to the statement he has made and the crimes that those statements has infringed on him. So left to me, I feel like that is what I am going to you know look at as the desirable outcome. But for now, I do not really have so much public confidence in the law enforcement agents to deal with situations like this, especially due to the political coloration of it. And as a matter of fact, by tomorrow, depending on what the outcome of the election is, we might not really have the need to discuss, this matter again. But one prayer I really, really earnestly say is that I pray that the elections in Osun State will be very peaceful and that it will be free and fair, and that we don't have situations of violence. Because
Hmm.
what Senator Fada has done is really, really very dangerous, and it is something that if peradventure the Accord Party emerges, could really escalate tensions in later. So I am just hoping that we are not going to have real consequences in terms of damages to persons and to lives, based on the statement. But at the very minimum, I believe Senator Father is charged with fraud. There is no special immunity. There's nothing keeping him from being charged as of now. And I'll keep insisting that that is where there is a bias in the way we administer, our criminal justice system. Because if this statement were made by a common man who is not a senator, who is not a member of the ruling party, by now we know what would have happened. So I think the game should be just be fair. The administration of justice should be fair, and Senator Father should be taxed.
Thank you for touching on what's going to happen tomorrow in Osun, but it's a final question for you. Ahead of that election tomorrow, what should political parties and their supporters be doing right now to ensure that provocative statements do not translate into violence? And I mean, in an event where voters encounter threats or intimidation at the polling units, what do you recommend?
Well, it is firstly a crime under the Electoral Act in Section 97, 1 and 2. It criminalizes the act of using violence or threatening voters to cast their vote for a particular party or to intimidate them for not casting their vote for a particular party. So I think it is punishable by 9 years imprisonment if I'm not. So I believe that anyone who is about to, go vote tomorrow, to just do it peacefully and do it, quietly. And in cases where there are situations of maybe persons coming on board to harass voters or trying to intimidate voters, then I believe that is why we have a lot of enforcement agents on ground. As of now, we have both the army and we have both the police in Osun State. So I believe when such a thing happens, then voters should ensure to call the attention of the law enforcement agencies, to those particular occurrences. Then also, I would recommend that video coverages should be present at every polling unit in course of the election. At least the bare minimum, there should be a video coverage. And that is where I would also beseech the journalists, because I know journalists are not doing an easy job and it's a very risky one, but I would really beseech media houses to be present at every polling unit to ensure that the election goes free and fair and to ensure that there is accountability. But for anyone who has it in mind to probably incite to tomorrow or to cause an act of violence, I think they need to just know that they're about to commit a crime that can land them in serious trouble. But finally, we just hope and pray that everything.
Mr. Latunde? Uh, all right. Well, it appears.
Goes peacefully, and that may the best man.
All right, all right. Thank you so very much, Mr. Olatunde Olayinka Damilola, legal practitioner. Thank you for your jurisprudential perspectives on some of these issues, and thank you for your time this morning.
Thank you.
All right. Well, that's our conversation this morning.